Do you like trans people? Great news. From March 31st to April 12th, there will be over 40 shows made by trans folks happening on live stream and video on demand and in person in Los Angeles. Check out The Joy Who Lived, a trans theater and comedy festival featuring incredible art, including a live reading written and directed by me and my wife and writing partner, Susan, of our original pilot, Robo-Waitress Assassins. In a world where murder is legal, a cybernetic waitress is used to assassinate anyone the mega company known as corporate wants out of the way. But a personal catastrophe spurs her to defy her programming and expose corporate to save others like herself. A full cast live reading of a trans, queer, cyberpunk action dramedy pilot full of action, humor, and heart, and about how society controls our bodily autonomy and pits us against each other to keep us from rising up. Check it out at joywholived.com, where you can support the festival, get tickets, and learn how to get involved. Welcome to Tilly's Trans Tuesdays. This week we interview writer Alex Ritany about their upcoming book, Maybe Tomorrow I'll Know. And trust me when I say you're going to want to hear all about it. Hi, I'm Tilly Bridges, your host, and I'm joined by my writing partner, my best friend, my wife, our token cis representation, the one and only person I'd want to be stuck in a time loop with, Susan Bridges.
Hello. A time loop sounds really relaxing right now.
No more bad things could happen for a while.
Right? We just put a pause on reality.
It'd be great. Our guest this week is Alex Ritany, a Canadian artist, musician, and YA author of Dead Girls Don't Say Sorry from Nop BFYR, I Wish You Wouldn't, and Maybe Tomorrow I'll Know, upcoming April 7th, 2026, from Norton BFYR. When they're not at the keyboard, you can find them hosting tabletop game night, working on illustrations, or at their other keyboard composing music. Alex's love of art, music, and the Western Canadian landscape regularly spills into their writing, which tends to feature complex friendships, twisty romances, and explorations of queerness. They live in Calgary with their roommate Kat and Dice collection. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be with you guys today.
So, given that you write prose and compose music and do illustrations, it feels like you've got this drive to just sort of create and make things. And so do I. But where did that come from for you?
It was definitely cultivated in our house growing up. Like, my parents are both musicians. They met in grad school for music. So like both were really very passionate about that and passed that on to us. So music was actually the big thing in our house. But I've been telling stories and have been supported in doing that since I was very small. Like, some of my earliest memories are putting together a little like illustrative story that I wrote and illustrated that my parents helped, put together in the actual physical
amazing
form.
I love that so much.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to have been raised in that environment. Like, my dad's a very talented artist as well. So I got to see that growing up and kind of chased that a little bit myself. And writing.
That's really cool.
Yeah, writing's always been a bit of a kind of escape thing.
Sure.
For a lot of us.
Yeah. I wish I'd had a childhood like that. Like, all of my creativity is sort of in spite of the way I was raised. So, but however we get there, that's all that matters, right?
I find those of us who are kind of prolific in terms of making stuff usually come from kind of one extreme or the other.
Yeah, but I feel also like we work in so many mediums, Susan and I, and we are always writing or making something. And I feel like if I'm not, I don't feel alive. It's like the best thing.
Yeah. Yeah. If everything gets too busy to the point that I can't be making stuff, I start going into the the what I call the death spiral tar pit. I'm like, what is the point of me? I have to be,
Yeah.
and it's not even a like here's what my where my worth comes from. It's just like I'm not having fun. Come on. I want to be making
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Creating aligns your atoms, like the
Yes.
MRI
yes.
Yeah.
machine or whatever.
Like MRI machine. I love that.
Yeah.
No, it does because like if I'm not, I'll just be like cranky and upset and miserable all the time. And it's just there's something so beautiful about just making things to connect thoughts and feelings with other humans. It's just the best thing.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Got to keep doing it or I get bad to be around.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay, so for you, what has been the best thing about transitioning?
Oh, all of it.
Yeah.
I think there've been so many beautiful, good individual moments. The big collective good has been that the releasing the weight that I hadn't realized dysphoria was putting on me for so long, even
Oh,
before
yeah.
I had words for that. As I'm like I'm now getting to the place where I pass in public for the most part, and to be gendered the way I prefer to be gendered
Yeah.
just is like it makes the gears of every day move smoother.
Oh, yeah,
Where
I love that.
I, there's so many little frictions and upsets that I just don't have to deal with anymore, that are just gone
Yeah.
because I feel more at home in my skin. I feel correctly seen and validated by people who don't even know they're correctly seeing and validating me in a way they might not have previously. And
Yeah.
it is so much easier to just be. I kind of have had a revelation. I know a lot of us have of the, oh, so this is what it's like for cis people all the time.
All the time for their whole lives without even trying. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, but that's just been such a blessing to step into that. You know, I had my top surgery in the fall, and it was just as affirming as I thought it would be, which
Yeah.
I know some people have had, really emotional experiences around their surgery or, having some kinds of like hormonal depressive episodes afterwards. And I was like really prepared for that, but it was just so good, which I'm so grateful for. But it
Yeah.
has made every aspect of my life more fun, more interesting, and more me. That's the best part.
Yeah. Did you find it also made you like better at, I guess, just being a human? Because like transitioning made me a better writer, but it made me a better mom. It made me a better wife. It made me a better friend because I could give more of myself because I wasn't buried by dysphoria.
Yes, yeah, for sure. I feel way more able to be present.
Yeah.
And I have I mean, I've always been a fairly introspective person where I have never had trouble being on my own
Yeah.
or just sitting with myself. But it's easier to do that without immediately going into well, I'm going to think about something else, something creative, something fun. I can just kind of be and
Yeah.
be in social settings without having that kind of ticking timer of I have this spring is tightening and tightening and tightening and something's going to give, and I'm just always aware
Yeah.
of that at some point when I'm in social situations. I don't have that as much anymore, which I think makes me more attentive to the people around me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So on the flip side of that then, what has been the worst or maybe most difficult part of transition for you?
Oh, there's some social stuff. It's hard. I know.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I did not have a particularly easy experience with my initial transition. It was kind of there was some big roadblocks, and then after that, the people who were left were really good. But I did
Yeah.
like when I came out, it cost me my marriage because I was married at the time,
Oh,
and
I'm
my
so
ex.
sorry.
Yeah, me too. It was too bad because we were very good partners to each other, but
Yeah.
if someone's not queer, you can't make them queer. That's what it came down to. I have complicated feelings about that, but
Yeah.
when I came out, I lost that relationship. So that relationship and then that extended family. And then I also was estranged from my own parents for 3 years after the
Oh
fact.
my goodness.
So that was very turbulent
Yeah.
and it made for what I call that period of my life a period of extremes, because there was
Sure.
the extreme joy in coming out and being validated and recognized by the people that I had around me and feeling so fulfilled in my own skin, and then also just dealing with the actual divorce was way less turbulent than trying to deal with my parents, which is like, how do you break up with your parents?
Yeah. Yeah. I like my father died when I was really young, and so he never got to know the real me. And my mother died like 10 years before I realized and came out. But I know that she would have never, it would have, I mean, she and I barely talked beforehand because we
Yeah.
disagreed on so much fundamental things that are important to me about life. And so it's such a hard thing. Like, did it impact you in coming out and choosing to transition? Were you like the fear of losing so many people? Was that really hard to get over?
Yes. I think in a lot of ways I stayed closeted to myself for a lot longer than I would have otherwise, because it,
Sure.
it just felt like that this cupboard door that kept kind of coming open, and I would just slam it shut. Like, I don't want to see what's in there. There's gonna be
Relatable.
there's gonna be consequences if I open the cupboard. So I'm just gonna leave
Yeah.
the cupboard closed. And it was actually starting to write and realizing it was basically right when I realized I was going to be published, when my debut was going to come out. It's like all of a sudden I'm going to go from potentially never really being perceived in public by a bunch of people and kind of living my own private life to all of a sudden I will exist to other people some way.
You will
And
be perceived.
I will
Yeah.
be perceived whether I like it or not. And the idea of doing that and going into a writing career and being perceived as a woman made me so ill that
Mm.
I like it was that was a breaking point. I couldn't. And I came out about it was just about 6 months before the divorce and the eventual kind of estrangement from my parents. I came out as non-binary in that very kind of, 1 foot in the door. It doesn't
Sure.
like nothing's gonna change, because at that point
Right.
I wasn't sure about like going on hormones. I knew probably
Yeah.
down the road I'd want top surgery. And I was like, you can still call me my dead man. That's fine. It doesn't like basically groveling for like, don't hate me for this.
Yeah, we do so much to try to appease the cis people in our life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the the first conversation went pretty okay. In that I didn't get the, well, doom to you. You're going.
Yeah.
It was a kind of like, as long as nothing has to change for us, then we love you for who you are. In that very strange, we love you for who you are, as long as you are the thing we think you are, then it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That conditional quote unquote love. Yeah.
Yeah, and where then we had about 6 months of not ever talking about it. It was like, we're not discussing it. Nothing changed on that front, and I didn't expect it to. And as tragic and upsetting at the time as the divorce was, it really was like a catapult into, okay, I'm full sending it. Like, if I'm gonna lose my marriage over this, like, surely by then people will figure out, oh, it is a big deal. Like, it's not
Yeah.
something to just scoff at, and the potential consequences of that are not going to be nothing. So even if I hadn't been emotionally ready, and I probably would have delayed those serious conversations like with my family for quite some time, were it not for that. And that just sent me straight into it. And it's, well, if my whole life is changing, my whole life is changing. We're starting over. And I did.
Yeah. I'm sorry it was so rough for you, but I'm so glad that you made it through.
Thank you.
And you're
Thank you.
here
Yeah,
as
I'm
yourself,
here.
and that's beautiful.
I'm here. My
Yeah,
parents and I have started talking again in the last year, and it's,
that's great.
turbulent and as fraught as you'd expect it to be, but like, progress is being made on, I think, on both sides. So I never would have said, when I was writing Maybe Tomorrow No, I would never would have thought ever in a million years that there would be any kind of reconciliation, but we're inching towards it. So, there's always hope.
There's always hope. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into talking about that book, but before we do, where can people find you online after listening?
Oh, yes. I am occasionally on Instagram, just at my name, at Alex Ritany. I have a Tumblr blog, which is where
Ooh.
the real goofy stuff happens. That's A Ritany is my username there. Other than that, I have a couple other accounts, but I am rarely there. So Instagram, Tumblr, those are the places.
Excellent. All right, so let's get into talking about Maybe Tomorrow I'll Know and get listeners excited for it. And I thought to start off, maybe you could just tell people sort of what it's about, give them a little pitch for it.
Yeah. So Maybe Tomorrow I'll Know is about a boy waking up in a girl's body with no memories and 100 days to figure out like where his real self is, who like figure out who he is stuck inside of and what is going on as the day that he's stuck in repeats. So he's 100 repeats of the same day in this time loop to figure out, you know, where is his real life? Like where is he? Who has he been? Who will he be? And he, eventually gets help from a handsome stranger who helps him first outside the time loop and then, spoiler, inside the time loop as well.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. That's as far as I'll get with spoilers, but yeah, that's my pitch for it.
Well, Susan and I were lucky enough to get an early copy to read, and I want to be careful of the way I word questions because I don't want to spoil anything. So let me start with something overly general in sort of where did the idea for this book come from?
It came from I've loved time loop stories forever.
Sure.
And I think there's no real way to talk about Maybe Tomorrow I'll Know without getting a little bit into spoiler territory. And I think like I will get a little bit into spoiler territory because I think people who are tuning in here who any trans person who's read the book has gone, I know what's going on here fairly
Yeah.
quickly. And I honestly thought everyone was gonna like the whole point of this book is not the big plot twist of like, oh my goodness. It's like it's the
Yeah.
journey. How did we get here? And so I've been
Yeah.
surprised. Some of my cis readers who have gotten advanced copies have been like, I didn't see that coming. I'm like, how? How did you not see it coming?
They don't have that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
draw to me was about like finding a different lens with which to talk about dysphoria and the experience of what some trans people have the experience of kind of wrong body. And
Yeah.
I put that in quotations. I didn't necessarily actually have that experience myself of, feeling like I was born wrong. It's been more of a journey of building something that's more right. But
Sure.
there is, I know, that experience of, especially once you realize you're trans, you're like, okay, the meat suit that I'm in is not feeling correct anymore. And
Yeah.
I was struggling to describe that to some of my cis friends. They're like, literally don't know how to explain. How do I explain to you what this is like? And that was when the kind of amnesia and kind of wrong body came in. It's like, what happens if you wake up and kind of like the first thing you know about yourself is like, I'm a dude. And then as you're moving through this space in the world, you're realizing the body you're in is not a dude's body, and people are addressing you as a girl. That
Yeah.
is to me, that's a horror concept. And this book is not horror. I would describe it as contemporary because of the kind of levity that I was like, if I'm gonna get as distressing as this book can be, I'm gonna pack in some of the other fun, light
Yeah.
stuff as
Yeah.
well. But putting that concept into a time loop and adding the mystery, it was kind of those things that had all been intriguing me coming together all at once in like January 2024, where I was like, I have to get this down. I have to get this down on paper right now,
Yeah.
or else.
I'm glad that you are the one giving out those little spoilers because then I will not get in trouble for it. So,
Exactly.
but yeah, I feel like when I was reading it, I identified so hard with the feeling like every day is the same and you don't know how to get out of it and you don't know how to change the and you don't even sometimes notice the passing of the time. Like I had when I was mired in my dysphoria before transition, I did a lot of dissociating that I didn't even know I was doing. And so I've
Yeah.
lost so many memories and I've lost so much time. And I feel like this book captures that really, really well.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think there is that kind of pre-social, pre-medical transition space where you've clocked that something's not right, but you're
Yeah.
just wheel spinning because for whatever reason you can't. Either you literally for safety reasons can't, or for other social reasons can't take that first step and actually, or even haven't yet decided that it's worth it.
Yeah, or even gotten to the point where you can accept that about yourself. It
Yeah.
took me so
Yeah.
long to get there because I didn't have a frame of reference. I didn't know trans people was something that existed that someone could be for so
Yeah.
long. And so, yeah, you end up getting stuck there. But I also really love what you said about your cis friends reading it, because a thought that occurred to me as I was going through it over and over again, as I was like, this is a great book to give to cis people who don't know what it's like to be trans. And I feel like it could open their minds in such good ways.
That's the hope. That's the hope.
Yeah.
I wanted to write something that resonates for trans people, that is really accessible to cis people
Yeah,
who
yeah.
haven't ever had to think about it. Because yeah, I know there are some books that I've read that have been, trans fiction, where I get into it. I'm like, I am so here. I am right here.
Yeah.
And then I think about like trying to explain it to somebody else. Like, okay, you have to put aside, and I know so many people struggle when they're reading to put aside their own experiences to just
Sure.
open come in open-mindedly. So yeah, I feel as though I am always on a journey of trying to explain myself in the most clearly articulated way, and this book is definitely a part of that.
Yeah, yeah. What was your reaction to it as our token cis person, to the way, like, the sort of awakening to dysphoria and everything happened in the book? Like, I mean, you've gone through all of this with me, so you're very familiar with what I've been through. So how did it impact you?
I mean, it was obvious for me.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you caught on to it right away.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
but that's okay.
Well, no, but that's because you have the experience of going through my whole transition with me. So
Yeah. But yeah, I could definitely see the sameness of going through the days and not really wanting to push on the edges of anything.
yeah,
Like, that definitely makes sense.
you could relate to what I've been through with there.
I
What
mean,
you're saying?
I guess, yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I didn't know at the time.
Sure,
Which
I didn't
is
either.
the hard thing.
Yeah,
That's always the hard thing, is not knowing
yeah,
at the time that you were struggling so much
sure,
with this thing that I didn't know.
yeah. But it's like, because I didn't know what it was at the time.
I know.
So,
There's no way I could have known. And
right.
yet,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you were great. Well, okay. I'm gonna get into spoilers. I'm gonna shut up. So, like, as you mentioned, this book features a teen boy trapped in a teen girl's body, and I just want to ask if you were mysteriously drawn to body swap stories for your entire life before realizing you weren't cis, because I sure was. There were no signs.
What? What? No, one of the books, I guess I was a voracious reader as a kid.
Yeah.
So I read so much. I was obsessed with one magical wizard book series, which shall not be named, as a child before the author came out as terrible. I was so obsessed with those books that I had to read 10 other books. It was like a law in my house. I had to read 10 other books in between each book from that series that I was reading, because I was so obsessed with them. So as a result, I was like voracious, prolific reader. And there are very few books as a result that stick out that I remember being like, whoa. And one of them was, I was like a very young adult reading Every Day by David Levithan, which is that book where the person wakes up in a different body every day, which I think we actually used as a comp for Maybe Tomorrow No when we were trying to sell it, because it was that thing that intrigued me. It's like, what would it be like to just, be in somebody else's body? So yeah, for sure.
Well, it's wild too when I look back at my writing that I did before knowing and coming out. There were so many instances of dudes suddenly appearing in a woman's body, being like, "What is this? What happened?" I'm like, "Come on, wake up to what you're doing!" Like, subconsciously, I was going through it, and I couldn't even see that's what I was doing. So yeah.
I still find myself doing that, where I'm like, this is a cool, unrelated concept. I'm gonna think about that. I started writing about a doppelganger in an adult fantasy project that I'm working on, and it took someone else being like, and that's interesting for you. And I was like, oh, yeah, it is interesting to me for the gender reasons. I thought it was interesting for the cool fantasy reasons, but it's always the gender.
It always comes back to that, it seems. Yeah. Well, there were so many moments in this book that I identified with as a queer and trans person, and it feels so much like we never get enough of that kind of authentic representation in our stories. And so, like, I've experienced this a lot, but I wanted to get your perspective on it. Have you had any difficulties in getting repped or finding a publisher to pick up a book like this in these horrible political times that we're in?
Well, it's interesting because with this book, I will be transparent, a fairly unpleasant time with my debut novel. It was a really tricky situation for like a perfect storm of bad experiences. And my debut is not queer. I mean, those are bi for bi characters, but it's an MF romance.
Sure.
And so it's not specifically in the queer space. But
Hmm.
I was with my representation at the time trying to get any traction with the stuff that I was starting to write, which by that point was all queer,
Yeah.
and spinning wheels, getting absolutely nowhere. And we were just not compatible creative match, which I eventually figured out, and we parted ways right after my debut came out. But it was on a very discouraging note of like I had just worked so hard to get my name legally changed,
Yeah.
and because I wanted that in the copyright. I was like,
Sure.
if my dead name is in the copyright of this book, I'm gonna freak out. I'm going to freak out. Like I didn't have the resources at the time to like open an LLC, get it.
Yeah.
That part
Yeah.
was just like I have to get this done. And the timeline was so crazy tight. It happened like right before we were at the printers. It was like I could finally provide the documentation. And I kept my agent updated on like all of that stuff. And right after the book came out, it had such soft sales that she said, if you are ever going to write again, you probably should consider writing under a pen name.
Oh,
Uh, are you kidding me? This is the name I worked really hard for this name.
yeah.
That's my only way forward. And had, I went into the process of writing this book with such a dismal, like, no one's ever gonna publish anything I write again at all, let alone the weird queer stuff that I really want to get into. Like, I want to write weird trans books. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just not gonna happen, which I think contributed to it being such a raw book where I was like unflinchingly just writing whatever. I went, absolutely nobody on planet Earth is ever going to read this book because it's so niche. I'm never going to get published again. Blah, blah, blah. I was like really throwing myself a legendary pity party writing this. And I parted ways with my agent. And I was just like, well, I guess I'll just see what happens if I just really go for it. And I did and wrote this book and finished it and was like, well, that's another manuscript. Cool. I guess I'll see what happens. And went into trying to get literary representation with such a laissez-faire attitude and have such a miraculously positive story from that because I got a representation within 2 months of starting to query. And we sold this book at auction 3 weeks after I signed with my agent.
Wow.
So it was such a refreshing, validating, so exciting journey. And like I ended up with Norton Young Readers who have been such a fantastic home for this and for my upcoming books because they are so adamantly supportive of like the heart of what the books are about. My editor is fantastic.
I love that.
Amazing. So it completely defied all of my expectations and flew in the face of the anti-trans legislation we've been seeing. So it's like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
hear all the time about publishers, rolling back their support of
Yep.
marginalized stories, generally speaking, across the board. So I really was nervous going in, and they really, my agent went to bat for me, my editor went to bat for me, and the team has been so supportive. It has been like I don't think about it too often, or I get extremely emotional. It's like
Wow.
never thought that would happen, and it has been such a
Yeah.
blessing. Such a blessing.
Yeah. We've like had struggles in our TV writing and our comic writing with getting trans representation out there, and it's always so hard to get it past the cis gatekeepers. But one of our graphic novels was just announced. It's a YA rom-com called Just
Yeah,
Another
I saw
Summer.
that.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations. That's so
But when we
cool.
got the gig, we asked for two things and we thought we would get one. We said, can we make one character queer and can we make the romantic lead, a trans man. And we're like, if we're lucky, we'll get one, right? And they gave us both. They said we could do both. And that happened in the book. And then there was reshuffling as the book was just about complete, and we lost our editor. And I was like, oh no, what's the first thing that always gets axed? It's the queer and trans stuff, right? And it still went through.
There was a lot of anxiety.
There was a lot of anxiety, and they just announced it. And that company, Maverick and Mad Cave, has been so supportive of the transness and the queerness in this story. And there are other books that are like that. And I love it so much, and it means so much to me, but it shouldn't feel like it's rare, you know?
Yeah.
Like we've had so many struggles with so many places.
Even with places that say they want queer content, they don't want trans content.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or, you know, they want queer content, but not the main characters. You're like,
oh, yep.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah. No, it's really been amazing seeing, you know, now we have 2 examples of publishing professionals who are what I hope for is trailblazing the way to show what's possible. You know, we see people do want to read trans stories, and, you know, seeing fellow trans authors make bestseller lists makes me so happy.
Yeah.
In a way, usually sometimes I see other people on the bestseller list and I get a little salty. We all have been there where we're like, oh, you're succeeding. But I just have this complete joy for trans people making the bestseller list. I'm like, yes, this is great. Like Petra Lord, who just published Queen of Faces, which is a YA fantasy, has been on the New York Times bestseller list 3 weeks in a row now, which is so amazing. It's like a trans femme YA fantasy. It's like you don't see those on the bestseller list usually.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down right now. Queen.
I have my copy. It's gorgeous. I haven't started it yet, but I'm so excited because it's so cool to see all of us out there thriving.
Yeah.
We're not all thriving, but
each one of us that gets any kind of a win, it lifts all the rest of us up and makes the chances of others having their projects made rise. So
yeah, exactly.
I love that. Well, did you have any last thoughts you wanted to share about the book before we wrap up?
Oh, no, I hope it is validating for any trans kids who find it. I hope they realize that their transness does not make them too complicated for their own romance, their own life. Because there's certainly complicatedness happening in Laurie's life as he is navigating this romance with somebody who keeps forgetting him and is falling in love with him in the wrong body. That's complicated.
Yeah.
And
it is relatable.
Yeah. Relatable. And so I hope that it resonates for queer kids, and I hope that the cis people who read it, you know, really sit with it. I got a review just recently from someone saying that the book prompted a conversation between her and her husband about how they would respond if their children ever came out as trans, which was so gratifying and exciting to me to see, because I had not even been thinking about the parents that might read the book.
Yeah. That's one of the best things about my book that I wrote about the Matrix films is that, and their inherent transness, is that I've heard from a lot of trans people that were touched and impacted by it, but the cis parents of trans kids that have written me and said, I understand my trans kids better because of this. I'm just like, that is right. Like then that kid is going to get better support from a parent who understands them better. That is the best thing in the world. So I'm so glad that you're getting that too.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a beautiful experience, and I can't wait to see how it lands with readers once it's out.
And that is very soon.
Yeah. April 7th. So
April 7th.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, Alex.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Friends, I really loved Maybe Tomorrow I'll Know, and I think both trans and cis folks will get a whole lot from it. As we said, it releases April 7th, 2026, and you can pre-order it now from a link in the show notes. It is a sweet, grounded sci-fi story with some fabulous and authentic representation, and we need so much more of that, especially now. Tilly Bridges, end transmission. Tilly's Trans Tuesdays is hosted by Tilly Bridges and Susan Bridges, with audio editing and sound mixing by Jillian Morgan. The written essay version of this week's topic and all past topics is available at tillystranstuesdays.com. Special thanks to Daisy and Jane for the use of Sorry Not Sorry as our show's theme music. Please stop by and show your support at daisyandjane.bandcamp.com and soundcloud.com/daisyandjane. You can find me at Tilly Bridges on Blue Sky, on Mastodon at Tilly Bridges and Mastodon.social, and on Insta at Heck Yeah Tilly Bridges. And you can find Susan on those at Susan L. Bridges. You can find Jillian at Audio Jillian on Blue Sky. You can join the Tillyverse Discord server by following the link at the very bottom of TillysTransTuesdays.com. We hold regular watch parties for the Matrix films and other trans movies, where I do a live Q&A, and it's blossomed into a wonderfully supportive, compassionate, kind community of friends. We'd love to have you join us. If you'd like to keep up with all the writing that Susan and I do, you can sign up for our newsletter at birdguestbroadcast.com. Signed copies of our comics and my book, Begin Transmission, The Trans Allegories of the Matrix, are available on my coffee shop at ko-fi.com/tillybridges. If you're listening on YouTube, it's so cliche, but please like and subscribe and take a few seconds to leave a comment. Those feed the algorithm and helps the show be found by so many more people. If you're listening on other platforms, ratings and reviews help just as much, and I'd certainly appreciate them. Thank you for your support. For more information, visit pendantaudio.com. Thanks for listening.